My name is Laura Stevenson. I'm currently the Operations Manager for Open Heart International, which is a division of ADRA Australia. But in 2022, I was the manager of the Community Centre in Macquarie Fields. Now, we had many programs in Macquarie Fields, but one of the programs was to assist people with food. And I remember this day in particular because it was very hot, and it was around 5:30 in the afternoon, or 5:45 closer. But just as I was about to close the door, I heard this voice, and they called out to me and sort of sounded really distressed, and he just said, please wait. In a few moments, a family came into view. They had 3 little kids, and they were walking as fast as they could to get to our little gate at the back door. And as they came through, they said, are you closed already? And I said, we're just about to close. And they said, okay, please, if you can just wait for us. And they were so out of breath. And I had asked them, please come inside. I gave them something to drink. So once they had calmed down and they were inside, and they, were able to tell us their story, and they said, we came all the way from Campbelltown, but we had to walk because we didn't have a car seat for our baby. And we didn't know if we needed a car seat on the public transport. So we were really stunned because this is a 13-kilometre walk, and what should have taken someone about 3 hours had taken them 7 hours to walk. They had stopped along the way, they had changed their baby, they had fed the kids, and of course, as you must know, children don't like to walk that far, and so they had given them quite a lot of trouble on the way. But anyway, they started sharing their story with us and why they had come. And they said that they came because of the 4 letters of ADRA. And he just left it there, and he continued. So I said, hang on, can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by what's it got to do with the 4 letters of ADRA? So they said they didn't know what ADRA meant. They didn't know the meaning of ADRA, but what it meant to them was salvation. And then they started sharing the story of why these 4 letters impacted them so much. So their story was that they were from Afghanistan, and Mohammed was employed by the Embassy of Australia, and he was in logistics, and so he was well known in the area, and the Taliban was targeting him and his family. Anyone that worked with any of the embassies, the American Embassy, the Australian Embassy, the British Embassy, were all targeted, and they were on their list to be executed. And it was a really difficult time for them. They had to flee no matter what. They had to get their family safely out. And so they were told to go to the airport. There would be a plane, an Australian plane, waiting there on the tarmac, and they wouldn't leave until everyone was in that plane. And they had to just get to the airport safely and get to that location. And so they could see where the planes were. There were a few planes that were there on the tarmac. They didn't know which plane it was, but they knew that that's where they needed to get to. But the place was surrounded by Taliban, and they were really afraid. They didn't know how they were going to get there safely. So Zara was walking with her daughter, and she had almost slipped in this water. And one of the guys that was walking with them, dressed in black, grabbed the daughter and carried her the rest of the way. And Mohammed remembers just seeing these 4 letters on his t-shirt as his coat kind of moved to the side. And it was ADRA. And he carried the little girl all the way. They had also helped to carry their oldest son. And they finally reached the plane. And they were able to board safely, and they got away. So when they arrived in Australia, life was really difficult for them as refugees. The amount that they were given wasn't enough to live on. They weren't employed. Employment was really difficult for them because they couldn't speak English all that well. And so they were learning English and trying to get a job, doing whatever they could. And so things were really getting difficult for their family. And they just searched online for these 4 letters that meant salvation to them. And so they got really emotional when they were telling this part of the story. And they were saying, they saved us from what could have been a sure death at that airport. And so for them to look up ADRA and know that if they found ADRA, they would find a solution to the difficulties that they were going through meant a lot to us. And it made us feel that we were part of something bigger. And so we welcomed them in. We packed up some of the vegetables that were left in the fridge from that day, and we were able to pack the car full of things for them. We gave them a few extras. There were some clothes and things like that we could have given them that day, which we did. One of our volunteers lived towards Campbelltown, and she thought she would just drive them there. She happened to have a car seat in her car as well, because one of her grandchildren often travels with her. So that was just ideal. And we explained to them that you don't need to use a car seat on public transport, especially when you're traveling with little ones. So they didn't need to take this route ever again. But from that point on, our volunteer that lived near to Campbelltown, she would take up a few boxes of vegetables, fruit, any sort of items that we had in clothing or something that we could help the kids with for school supplies. And she would take that weekly on a Thursday up to Campbelltown for her. And it was really amazing that we had given this for their family, but there were other families from Afghanistan living in the same apartment complex. And so Zara and Mohammed shared whatever they got every week with the people that were there in their community. The reason why Mohammed and Zara's story has really impacted me personally was because I too had an experience with ADRA being a salvation to my own family. So in 1997 in South Africa, just after my father passed away, we had fallen on some really difficult times. And it was ADRA South Africa that helped us out and was there for us and really impacted our lives. So it's really a privilege for me to celebrate these 40 years with ADRA, because they have transformed so many lives and really had an impact on me personally, as well as so many other people like Zara and her family.